step 4 on connecting is especially important. And as I was writing the connecting chapter, I remembered an entrepreneur I had actually worked with in India, family-owned company, very successful. You would know the name if I mentioned him, and very shy individual. And the company was very aware of how shy he was, and it was starting to get in his way of building effective relationships. And so I was called in to coach this individual to help him to understand the value of better relationships, but also to just start building the productive relationships. And he had a fair question when we were having this discussion, which was, well, where should I start? There's many thousands of people in my company. Who should I start connecting with? Well, when you read through all the science in connecting, the first conclusion is it's actually proven that people with better networks are higher performers for some obvious reasons. The more people you have to rely on, to draw ideas from, to have support you, it should put somebody else in your corner to allow you to be an even stronger performer. The science says, though, 2 groups to focus on: boss and peers. The first challenge is sometimes when I talk to people about being nicer to and building a better relationship with your boss, I hear, well, I'm not a kiss up. I'm not going to do that. That's not behavior I believe in. Well, there's a lot of distance between treating your boss like a human being, the same way you treat any other human being, and being a real suck up. And what most people need to do is recognize bosses are people too. Bosses like to be asked about their weekend. Bosses like to be complimented when they do a good job. Bosses like to get a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and have a light conversation. Some people are concerned about the power distance between me and the boss. But depending on the culture that you're in, most of the time, bosses are more than happy to have a lunch or have a coffee or engage in a conversation that you would have with any other friend that you have. And part of relationship building is saying, I want to have a warm, personal relationship with my boss. Now, by personal, it simply means perhaps you've had a lunch, you've talked about something other than work. You know what her or his favorite hobby is. You occasionally ask about that. The same things you would do with any other friend, but you are conscious to ensure that you are doing that well with your boss. Science says that relationship is going to help you be promoted. So literally the research says people who have better relationships with their boss are promoted more often. It even goes to the point where people who are lower performers but have good relationships with their boss receive higher performance ratings than regular low performers. Now, that's not a good strategy, but it just points to the power of that relationship. What about peers? Peers cannot be the reason for your success, but they can certainly get in the way of your success if you don't have strong relationships. What I tell anyone that I work with around building great networks is right now, do an instant audit of your peer relationships. Let's go on a 5-to-1 scale. 5 is we are best friends, we talk all the time. 1 is we can't stand each other, we avoid each other whenever we can. You can fill in the blanks in between. If all of your peer relationships are not a 5 or a 4, then today you need to write a note to that individual and say, hi, Shruti, we haven't chatted in a while. I know it's difficult with social distancing, but would love to have a virtual cup of tea with you and just catch up on what's going on in your world. So a light, easy conversation. It's not about a project, but it's a way of you just offering a friendly gesture. Because again, peers cannot be responsible for your success, but we all know how the water cooler works. If you don't have good relationships with peers, they can pull down your potential success. And external connecting. A lot of us don't think about the fact that our networks need to be outside the workplace as well. What I always recommend to anyone who wants to be well connected is write to the most powerful person in your field and ask them a question about that topic or about that field. Experts love being experts. I mean, don't ask for a free consulting assignment, but let's say you're in finance and you really admire, the CFO at Infosys. Great. Find where he's given a speech on something, write to him and say, heard your speech on the new accounting rules. I was curious, how would you respond to X? Experts love being experts. And maybe the first expert you write to won't respond, but I guarantee you after a while, you'll find someone who's happy to engage in a light discussion. Great. You're now part of their network. Their network, because they're a powerful person, might be even bigger and better than your network. So make sure you're making those external connections as well. How can you ensure this is going well? Because I'm an introvert and I'm not naturally good at building those relationships, I like to structure that process. And structuring that process means I'm going to literally track, who do I need to have those relationships with? What's the strength of that relationship? When was the last time I interacted with that person? Or are there a few things I should remember about that individual, or about our interaction that would be important? Now you might say, well, Mark, that's fake, or people should be able to naturally build relationships. Great. If you're a natural extrovert and you do this well, fantastic. You probably don't even need to worry about this step. But there are lots of people who do need to put more work and more structure into it. And just because some people are naturally good at it, and you're not as naturally good at it, doesn't mean that you can't structure the way that you interact with people to ensure that you show up as a great connector, even if that's not your natural tendency.